Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting of the Gloucester School Committee to order. It is Wednesday, September 8th at 6 o'clock, and we are at the Gloucester High School Library. This meeting cannot be attended in person by the public at this time. To attend the meeting, please click on the Zoom link to join the webinar. This meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with state open meeting law, consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning certain gatherings such that an in-person meeting of the school committee is not possible. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. We are going to be going into executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations. We will reconvene at 7 o'clock. If we finish executive session before that, we will recess until 7 o'clock. So if there's anybody out there listening, we are going to go into executive session and we will reconvene at 7 o'clock. Need a motion to meet in executive session pursuant with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the following purpose. As an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the collective bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and to return into open session to continue the meeting. We will be taking up litigation matter, the gate and GTA bargaining units. And I so move.
Second.
And I'll let the roll call vote stand as the attendance.
Kathy Clancy.
Here. Yes.
Mr. Favazzo. There.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Pope.
Yes.
Ms. Watson. Yes. And Ms. Reason. Yes.
Okay. And the Mayor and Melissa Texera are not present. That being said, we're going into executive session, and as I said, we'll reconvene at 7 o'clock. So thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Gloucester School Committee back into session. I will remind everybody that the mission of Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners. This meeting the meeting cannot be attended in person by the public at this time. To attend the meeting, please click on the Zoom link to join the webinar. This meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with the state open meeting law, consistent with the governor's orders, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning certain gatherings such as an in-person meeting of the school committee is not possible. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or device, there's a raise hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. Okay. Can we have a roll call for attendance?
Kathy Clancy.
Here.
Mr. Favazzo.
Here.
Chairman Pope.
Here.
Ms. Prince is not here. Mayor Taken is not here. Ms. Watson. Here. And Ms. Weason. Here.
Okay, so we have a quorum. And I will ask you all to join me in the salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oral communications. If there's anybody the public shall have the opportunity at every regular school committee meeting to be heard under oral communications. Oral communication shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to the school committee business to appear before the school committee, state their problem without debate, and the matter may be referred to the proper subcommittee. For items that are on the agenda, members of the public may address the committee with the permission of the chair. Persons speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each and shall submit a copy of their prepared communication to the recording secretary. The school committee chair shall not allow complaints as to individual performance or character. That being said, I will open the oral communications. I'm looking to see if anybody has their hand raised. I'm not seeing any. In which case, we will move on with our agenda. Chairman, my chance to say something. I'm going to say it one more time. We're wearing masks here, and vaccines are readily available. And if anybody, if people want to have the economy function and kids in school and, not be locked down and be able to go to ball games and enjoy them and football games that are coming up, that's the way to do it. Get vaccinated and wear your mask. That's all I can say. I can't say it enough. Thank you. Do we have, normally we have, at this point on our agenda, we would have our student advisory committee, and we have students here. It just isn't on the agenda. So if you can introduce yourselves and tell us what's going on at the high school, that'd be great.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. So I'm Jenna Smith. I came to one meeting last year at the very end of the year, and I'm the vice president of the executive board at GHS. There's been a lot going on since we got back, and it's really exciting. One of the things that are different from last year is that last year we had one-way hallways. We don't have that anymore. Masks are still required, but so far, so good. Everything's gone well from what I've heard. Student council elections are in progress. We haven't had the actual elections yet, but a lot of students and a lot of freshmen have signed up, which is new. It's definitely a change of pace, but it's an awesome thing that the younger kids are starting to get involved early. The executive board, there's 2 presidents who both have other obligations and the secretary who is also somewhere else. But me and them 3 are all working together with Miss Venery, and we're working on homecoming and Spirit Week and all of those fun festivities. And we're trying to make it work with all the regulations. NHS tutoring starting again. We're trying to get the word out to all the students at GHS, and I'm pretty sure we can tutor O'Malley kids too. And we're just trying to, 1, get our NHS hours, but 2, help out our classmates and help tutor them with any class they need. Something else that's new for lunches, we have 3 options of where to go. We can go outside on the softball field within the gated area. We can go in the auditorium, and I believe it's 3 seats apart is the socially distanced. And then in the lunchroom, we also have socially distanced seats. And we have little printouts of QR codes, which you scan, and that'll log where you sit for the day at lunch. So for contact tracing purposes, we have that. The Interact Club had the first meeting today, and I'm one of the tri-presidents of that club, and there was a huge show out from a lot of people within the school, which was awesome. Hopefully we're gonna get a new board going since we weren't able to have the club last year because of COVID, but it was awesome to see how many people showed up there. We had the High School Musical film. It wasn't a musical, but the film last spring, and they got recognized by the METG. I'm not really a drama person. I don't know what that means, but it is a huge thing. It's a huge accomplishment for them. I know that Nate Oakes got 2 awards. I don't know who else got awards. I'm just friendly with Nate, so that's how I know. But congratulations to them. That is a huge accomplishment. I was talking about it in my AV music tech class today, how it's awesome that they got recognized like that. Because they were one of like the only schools last year that didn't take no for an answer, and they made it work, and they made a film when no one thought that they would have anything, which is awesome. Like, kudos to them. The drama club is holding an information session for parents and students in room 1407, Thursday, September 9th. So if you know anyone who wants to get involved with GHS drama, Miss Kirk, she's one of my teachers. She's an awesome lady. And she's having an information session on the 9th. The GHS Garden Club is being brought back by Yashvi Patel. I think that's a student, maybe? I'm not sure. They're getting help from Backyard Growers, Karen Hirsch from the Health Center, and Jessica Lichtenwald and Rachel Rex, 2 of the science teachers. So that's a club that's being brought back. I couldn't tell you much about that. I'm not a gardener. But yeah, that's all I have for you. Oh, sports. Football game, Friday night is home. Yesterday, the field hockey team had their first game. It was away against Malden. We took a nice win. It was 7-0. I play field hockey. I'm not back yet. I'm still going through a protocol to get back. I'll be back soon. If you guys want to go to a home game, I'm number 12. Keep your eye out. We won 7-0 yesterday. Huge accomplishment. Tomorrow, girls and boys soccer kick off their season. Boys are away, I believe, against Saugus, which I think that means girls are home against Saugus. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure that's who they're playing, but boys are away, girls are home. I already said football game Friday, and that's all I got for you. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
How is the mask protocol working out at the high school during the school day?
It's going good. Not many, like last year, a lot of students complained about it because it was new, like we weren't used to it. By this point, everyone's used to it. I've seen a couple of times, like if we're in the field house for some type of health class, people will like pull it down below their nose, and a teacher will be like, hey, like either go like away from some people or put your mask up. And then students don't really have an issue with it. They just put their mask up, like not really a big deal. It's going well. Everyone's primarily listening to the rules. That's it.
Do you find there's adequate time throughout the day to get a break from the mask?
Say that again, please.
Sorry. Do you find there's adequate time during the day to get a break from wearing a mask? Like are there mask break opportunities throughout the day, or is it just kind of on your face all day?
You have opportunities. You can always ask your teacher, hey, can I step outside in the hall for a mask break? They'll always say yeah, unless they're like in the middle of a lecture. But I feel like most students know don't ask in the middle of a lecture. So if you say, hey, Mrs. or Mr. whatever, can I have a mask break? Can I have a water break in the hall? They'll 9 out of 10 times they'll say, yeah, go ahead. And then you step outside, go in the hall, whatever. For some of like the vocational classes, like I'm in cabinet design, we have a little like patio area where if we need to go like outside, not just in the hall, we're allowed to go out into outside to get some fresh air. And yeah, we definitely have an opportunity to get mask breaks. We just need to ask for it.
Thanks.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much. It's great to see you, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Great.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jenna.
Bye.
We'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that anybody would like removed for further discussion?
No.
Do we have a motion?
So that we approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Okay. Maria, can we have a roll call vote?
Kathy Clancy,
Yes.
Mr. Favazza,
Yes.
Chairman Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Watson. Yes. And Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our deliberations on educational issues. And I will turn it over to Superintendent Lummis, who will give us an update on school openings, report on summer programs, and the strategic planning process.
Great, thank you, folks. Good evening, everyone. Let me just share my screen here. One second. Okay, just a reminder again, everyday matters in our schools, and so we've been up and running for 5 days, and that's really good. That's good. That's 5 days, really, first grade through 12th grade, because preschool had their first full day today after sort of a orientation low day yesterday, and then as we know, kindergarten sort of slowly works its way up. Half the class had their first day on Thursday. The rest of the students had their first day yesterday, which was Tuesday. So they're sort of beginning to roll. Let me just, oh, sorry, I'm not looking at this. So I'll give you an update on school opening in a few areas, reports on learning programs led by Mr. Bach, and then I'll just give you a verbal update on the entry plan process, report, which is upcoming, and also work we'll do this fall into the winter on strategic planning. So again, our primary objective is to safely educate all our students in our schools every day to maximize learning, address our students' full needs, and support communities and family needs. So one thing we have going on already is our superheroes in training. So this is a picture of Miss Sanfilippo's kindergarten class at East Gloucester. And these are their capes, as you can see, they're all wearing their capes and they're very superhero poses. But I do want to explain, these capes are used for only certain moments. They're not overused, they're actually utilized. And so Miss Sanfilippo has them put their capes on during certain challenging or difficult exercises or times. So it's their learning that when things get tough, they can put their cape on. And that's a signal to others in the classroom and to themselves that they're going to buckle down, but they're going to get through it. And they're going to make their way through. So, a tough challenge, tough exercise, maybe a tough assessment. I love this concept.
Absolutely.
I have a full disclosure. I have a full-size Captain America shield in my office, which I don't bring to school committee meetings, but maybe I will. But no, more importantly, it's the lesson that they're learning, I believe, that Miss Sanfilippo was teaching them, that they can get through difficult things and they're resilient, they can persevere. But then what I really like is that they also can learn that at any time, as they grow up and grow older, they can put on their cape, metaphorically, of course, or in reality, and see their way through tough times. And so I think that's a really important lesson that we're starting in kindergarten. Miss Sanfilippo was starting kindergarten, which I think is very, very powerful. And there's just no better capturing it in this picture. So that's one way we've been starting. Another way we've been starting is O'Malley, the O'Malley school staff. Principal Beatty asked them about what their why is. Why are they teaching? Why are they doing the work they do? Which is a very powerful question. Oh,
All right. That was my fault.
okay. And so I'm just going to share a few of them. I'm not sharing the names of the teachers because just for their own sake and privacy. But the staff shared them, with each other. But you can see these. So this is a math teacher, obviously. But her why is because she wants her students to be ready for this. And she gets excited when students make real life connections in math, when they realize math helps them to solve problems and make important decisions. And that she believes we're not just teaching students, but we're teaching lifelong learners and future career holders. And that's, you can see, I love hashtag math is for life, but you also can see so many professions that deal with math every single day in their work life. Another one, this is the idea of why do I teach? Let me count the ways. I teach because I love being around young people. I have hope for the future. Our world needs solutions based on communication, curiosity, compassion, and courage. Because to create connections in the brain, in the community, in life. And also she teaches because the seeds that she plants today will grow into trees tomorrow. Just giving a flavor for the many reasons, or a few of the reasons rather, our mainly teachers teach. Because kids are amazing and often disenfranchised and marginalized. I want them to know that they have thoughts worth hearing, and abilities to direct the course of their own lives. I want them to know that when they put all that together, they can change the world. Really, really powerful sentiments from our O'Malley staff, and just and I think it really captures the work we're trying to do, and some examples from our O'Malley teachers about why they have chosen such important work. So I do also want to just talk about what's different this year, and then I've shown this slide a couple times so far, and obviously there's a lot different. I won't go through this again, but the vaccinations and quarantine protocols and the Delta variant and what we know about COVID and testing is different. There's a lot that's different than in the past this year. But we're also learning that this year is quite a bit different than other years. So before March 12th, 2020, we had school life as we knew it. And we've been doing that for many years and to figure that out. And then last year, the COVID year, very little was normal. At the same time, because it was so different, folks expected and tolerated the unexpected. They adapted to uncertainty, and that means staff, families, students, yourselves. We adapted to uncertainty and ongoing changes. And there was a lot of empathy and tolerance throughout the year. And because of that, because of those three things, really, flexibility, that adaptability, and then that empathy and tolerance, we were really able to make it quite fantastic. And this year, though, we're just really learning this and trying to, I think our staff are, and talking to principals and others, we're realizing it's still a COVID year. It's definitely a COVID year, we're not back to the way it was before, but we want it to be. We're trying and hoping for what we used to have. And still there's the complexity on all levels related to COVID. So if we're trying to have lunch, if we're trying to walk down the hallways, if we're trying to welcome a child onto a bus, if we're trying to have a field trip, it's all the complications and different and just challenges and all those normal things, because it's complicated in schools. But then we're doing all those things, but we still have the COVID layer on top of it. And as well, we also have the being tired of it on top of it too. So that's just a way of, I think I want to acknowledge, I want to name that we're working through those things, and there are bumps along the way, and there will be bumps. And our students need grace because they're struggling with it too. Our families are struggling with it as well, and so our staff. And so that's really just a reminder that although I desperately want it to be normal, and I've talked about that, and we all do, that there's still real complexities we're dealing with because of COVID. And as I said earlier when we first gathered, that I don't think we yet have our running shoes on yet. We know how to run school, and running in school is very fast paced, but I don't think we all have our track shoes on yet. We're still getting them tied up. We're still working through some things. It's early in the year. There are always bumps along the way. I think we're feeling them. So, but we'll also at the same time, have a lot of confidence that we'll work through those, and we'll talk about some of those tonight, very honestly. But I just want to sort of, when we're trying to do all these things that we talked about that are normal, there's still challenges along the way, every step of the way. So a few updates. Class that you heard, I think Jenna did a great job of characterizing where we are with classes and learning. So they're underway. Folks are, we're still in the phase of getting to know names and getting to know procedures and that sort of stuff. We'll always be in the phase of connecting with students and learning about them and getting to know them. So that's all still happening. That's all part of the walking before we run. But we are fully operational, no doubt about that, across the board. Lunches are happening. It's one of the things that lunch we had down prior to COVID, and we didn't have lunch last year until the very end. But lunch is different than it was last year too. So we're working through those pieces. Obviously, as you heard Jenna talk about, the new pieces we put in place are the QR codes here. So that helps us with contact tracing if necessary at the high school in terms of where kids are sitting, because it's not assigned seats. They can sit wherever they like. There are assigned seats in other schools, so that'll help us with contact tracing, that sort of stuff. But still, there are 3 lunches at O'Malley instead of 2 that we typically have, which means people have different duties, that sort of thing. And so still working through those sorts of things. Transportation is a place that is always, has little bumps, obviously, because roads have bumps in them, but also is always working the pieces out. It's the same thing this year right now. For example, so and one of the things to work out in the beginning of the year in transportation is just the routes and the timing. And we're struggling with timing right now. And also struggling with some things like more traffic than we expected than typical on Washington Street. 3 buses got caught at the cut bridge today, and that has a cascading effect. So those are some challenges. We still have more families signing up. Adam can give us some numbers in a moment of how many, what our our capacity is and how full we are. I've asked them to give that information. But we're still having folks register for busing and getting transportation, and also what happens every year. So it's not a surprise, but it's hard to address is folks arriving at bus stops and expecting to get on. We always let them on, but they also have to register. So that's also a surprise to us. Not a surprise, it's just a curveball, Another challenge that we always face is helping our youngest members, our youngest students get used to the bus, and kindergarten specifically. And we're running a couple of bumps on this, and just want to sort of help folks understand how we do it with kindergartners, and also what we're looking at to strengthen and improve as well. So a couple of the schools have been using lanyards, and they have, so they identify who the student is, who their homeroom teacher is, what bus we're on there, what stop they are. But learned just this week that not all schools are doing that. So we're going to have all schools do that to help our youngest bus riders. Typically, they're in the front of the bus, and we reiterated today to make sure that they are both at, when they get on the bus in dismissal. And that will help us as well, and reminding bus drivers to make sure that happens. It's a little complicated when folks want to, when family members, when siblings want to stay together or need to stay together or told to stay together, and you have a younger one and an older one. And so try to help with messaging on that. But we also have now the lists of students on the bus are developing. As I said, they're changing every day. We're highlighting which students are kindergartners. So our bus drivers will look out specifically for them. And then there's always the question about, getting used to it. Where do you get off? That sort of thing. And who do you get dropped off to? And the way we've done that is our bus drivers learn the kids and they learn the families. And that's a process that's ongoing. It takes a little time. I'm not clear. It's the way we've been doing it, and it works quite well, and it has always worked well. But it also means that as things are changing as they are right now, that with more kids coming on and just getting those names and masks, that we're sort of highlighting that and pushing it forward. So, but it's something that that we're still working on and need to keep on working on, and then and also we'll continue to look at how do we get that better and better, especially for youngest riders as it's new for them. We don't want mistakes. Transportation. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
I have just a couple questions in relation to that.
Yeah.
So just going back to the list of students.
Yeah.
So the bus, can you just sort of drill down a little bit more about that? So the bus driver has a list of students, and how does that bus driver know which student is which?
Yeah. I'm going to ask Adam.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is part of the learn, just like teachers learn their students in classes, same thing with our bus drivers.
Yeah.
But Adam, can you just add to that in the process of how, bus drivers get to know their students, get to know who they're being dropped off with, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so each driver is given a route sheet. Right now we're printing the route sheets weekly. Depending on the number of students that get added every day, I'm adding anywhere from 10 to 30 kids a day to some of these routes. So we are printing them more often for the drivers. Each stop is listed, and then each student underneath by alphabetical order is listed underneath their stop. Typically the first few weeks, drivers are learning students' names what stop they're on, faces, what parent is picking them up typically from the bus, communicating with families at all possible at the bus stop in the amount of time that they get kids on and off at our group stops. And a lot of times the schools will work with the school bus drivers when they bring kids out, if it's a new student on a bus, and say, this is so-and-so, they're new today, or they're new to your bus. And then once schools have started adding students' names or tags to the students, it gives another level to the bus drivers to be able to identify who a student might be or is going forward. Unfortunately, we don't have school photos yet in any of our younger students, so that is not able to assist us when looking at students to identify some that we don't know. But it's the driver's responsibility to be learning names. A lot of them have 3 schools, 75 passengers for each school. So you're looking at just over 200 students that they're learning in a short period of time.
Cool.
Thanks. I just want to make sure I understand this, the kind of handholding that's going on is for kindergarten only. Once you're in first grade, you're permitted to attend a bus stop without parent supervision. You're allowed to leave a bus at your bus stop without parent supervision.
Great.
Is that, or the second grade?
Greg or Adam, can you help? I'm not familiar.
My understanding, according to the school committee policy, is kindergarten, we tend to go up to first and second grade. My messaging always goes out that we like all parents to be at the bus stop, because ultimately parents are responsible for students at the bus stop prior to getting on the bus and off the bus. So we do communicate to the letter that I sent out to families that we do like all parents to be at the bus. It is a requirement for at least the kindergarten students.
It's not required for kindergarten, recommended for others, but that's essentially we're clear as to what the delineation is, that, you know, if you're a first grader, you can be released off a bus without a parent there. Sounds like the preference is to have a parent there, but the only students who require a parent, as in, no, you cannot get off this bus yet because your parent is not here, you're coming back to the school with me, is kindergarten, correct?
Correct. And most of the times the drivers will develop that rapport with families, and I get calls all the time that so-and-so who's in 5th grade's mother's not here, she's always at the bus stop, can you call her? Or so-and-so's in 3rd grade, the grandmother's not here, she's always at the bus stop, can you call them? So we do get that a lot once drivers find the rapport with the family and figure out who's actually picking students up at the bus stop, or even at the bus stop in the morning, so they have that conversation with them.
So who is responsible, I guess, for sort of starting to build that rapport? Because are parents supposed to be sticking their head on the bus to say, hi, I'm typically the one that's gonna be here? Are bus drivers introducing themselves? What are you encourage bus drivers to do to sort of know who is gonna be the safe, approved adult for kindergartners to be received off the bus?
So we always encourage our bus drivers to make that conversation or that connection. All parents are not necessarily springing towards the bus in any given day. Some of them are waiting across the street. Some of them are waiting up the street a little ways. They're not all, grouped together, confined in a nice little area. We don't encourage drivers to carry on long conversations with parents at the bus stop. The bus stop is not the area to talk about student discipline or incidents like that. We always encourage that to happen off of the bus through a phone call, just to prevent the long lineup of vehicles or cars. But we always encourage families to also approach the driver to make that introduction. And a lot of families have. This couple weeks, it's learning the students' names initially and then making the connection with the family. So drivers are kind of doing it twofold right now. But it is always encouraged of the driver to meet those families that are there. We have a lot of our specialized transportation, which are one-on-one drop-offs. It's a little bit easier for those drivers to make that connection than the 20 to 30 kids that may be getting off at a group stop at Commonwealth or Washington Street with families that aren't necessarily right at the bus stop.
Go ahead, if you have a follow-up.
So has it been communicated though to kindergarten parents that they should introduce themselves? Because I guess I'm just curious, how are you encouraging parents to do that? Has that been put in email?
Most of the families that I've talked to have stated that they've talked to the driver. It hasn't been put in any communication or email that they need to introduce to the driver. We can definitely do that communication going forward. But most of the communication I get from families is that they've talked to the driver or we know the driver from our previous kids. This is not the first sibling that may be going through the system. So, more than happy to send out an email to get that ball rolling. But a lot of families do it on their own, we're finding.
Mhm. So I guess the last sort of thing that I would ask is that, it would be really hard, I would imagine, right, for a bus driver to be able to introduce themselves to every single parent. But what I'm hearing from you is that the only way that the bus driver knows who a safe adult is just by getting to know the families. And so there needs to be a much clearer communication on how bus drivers do that with parents, because coming from a social work world where there's restraining orders and there's definitely issues in relation to who's at the bus or not, that protocol I think needs to be much clearer, especially for younger kids who have no idea, if they're supposed to be getting off the bus alone or not. Does that make sense?
It surely does, and I can definitely work on that going forward. The struggle that we have, and I've always worked with drivers, is when we get a list of about 10 people that are approved to get the student off the bus, and trying to introduce and meet all of those people at one time. But definitely having a one-on-one face to at least make the initial contact, we can
Sure.
do some training and some communication around with drivers to get that started.
And does the list that the bus drivers get have any indication of who the kindergartners are? And if it does, so they know.
Yeah,
kind of-
they're all they all have the grades next to them.
Okay,
Once we get them finalized, they will get a sheet at the end of the route sheet with all the parents' names. And if a parent has requested additional names to be at the bus stop, those will be added. It turns out to be anywhere from 30 to 40 pages per bus route or bus, just because of the wealth of information that we put on those sheets, sort of have parent contact names, information, phone numbers, etc. So once those are finalized, we'll print those for the families. It also links up with our student information system. So once that gets completely updated from our schools, which are still adding students, that'll be in there. And then we can also pull student photos once those are added from our student information system.
So again, as far as beyond kindergarten, but sticking with elementary, because I understand how mainly, there's more agency given to the students, understandably. Let's say I'm a first or second grader, and I'm supposed to get off at Washington and Prospect Ed's Mini Mart. As we're coming down, I see Tony's at Washington and Comm Ave and go, oh, this must be, or Washington Centennial rather, oh, this must be me. As a first or second grader, is anyone saying like, oh, hey, Joel, this isn't you? Or am I just kind of like piecing out as the driver, hopping off at the wrong mini mart?
They're not supposed to be. They are, as the list the driver's supposed to be checking as they go on and off. I can't say that there hasn't been an error or two where a kid may have gotten off at a wrong stop. We also have kids that get on the wrong bus thinking they're going to a stop that's on a completely different bus. So the drivers have been able to recognize those several times already this year and ended up rerouting their buses to accommodate that student onto the correct bus stop where they're supposed to be. I know drivers tell students very on in the year, stop at the top of the steps. If you don't see your parent, make sure that you stay on the bus or let us know. And so getting students to train to that method again is something that we're working on. It helped us several times last year, where a student got off at a bus stop with her mom. She was a 5th grader. Her mom was not there, but she recognized that before we moved on. So we try to get parents called as soon as possible.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that although a 2nd grader has agency to get off a bus by themselves, they only have that agency at their correct spot. They cannot choose a 2nd grader to leave the bus at the wrong stop, but they can choose to leave at the right stop unaccompanied. But that's the limitation of their agency as a 2nd grader, right?
Correct, unless a parent has assigned or requested an additional bus stop.
So you have a few different pieces here, right? And we have to allow for, the gearing up for this, okay? Because kids learning their stops, bus drivers learning the kids and learning the stops, and there's definitely a significant level of complexity here because also the kids in the bus are changing as well, okay? So, every year there is this complexity, okay? It's a time of working out. And, we are doing everything we can to make sure it's always right, and we'll do more, and we can do more. For example, one area on this is just in terms of the delays. Adam's working right now, and we have the PO in place so we can sync our bus routes to our communication software, our routing software to communication software. So if a bus is late, we can send a message, either in the morning getting there or dropping off in the afternoon. We can send a message to the families on those bus routes to tell them it's late. Right now they're late and we can't do anything about it. And they're waiting. So again, it's one example, whether it's the lanyards at all the schools, another example, whether the reminder of the communication in terms of what you expect to do as a family member or parent at a bus stop. Those are all helpful suggestions, and we can continue to improve it. And we have to realize that we're never going to get the complexity out of the way, but we have to deal with it and have to make sure we keep improving it. So.
Samantha?
I just have one more clarification question. So Adam, you said that the bus drivers, for example, at the school, as the kids get on the bus to leave in the afternoon, they have a list and they're accounting for who is actually on the bus. And then when they leave the bus, they're counting for when they're getting off the bus as well?
So they do have the list they're supposed to be checking as the kids get on, depending on how they're brought out. What teachers may let them know who's there and who's not. We do have the ability to do attendance sheets, which is something that we may be looking at implementing. There's a lot for a driver to try to get the kids on as fast as possible and out of the school within a short amount of time, unfortunately. And that is something that we need to look at how we can better do that boarding and unloading process. The unloading process is a little bit easier because there's less students at a bus stop necessarily to account for who's leaving the bus at a certain time. The tricky aspect of it is, and to kind of go off of Joel's question, is we have several students who may ride the same bus, but they may get off at Aunt Jane's on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and home every Monday and Wednesday. So getting the student to learn that information and the driver to realize that next to their name, they only have a W and a TH to say Wednesday, Thursday, this is their stop, but the other days they're going someplace else. So to make sure that that's all accounted for is what we're working towards.
So it's up to the teacher then to say, hey, this is so-and-so, say like in the first couple weeks of school, this is, so-and-so, this is kindergartner, so that they know, the bus driver knows.
We work a lot with the schools and the teachers getting their students onto the bus. I update lists to the schools and I'm in communication with the school secretaries probably 10, 15 times a day, updating students so that the teachers have those lists. So when they bring the students out, they know where they're putting them on which bus and have a count that way. And then a double account when the driver has them on. This week has been a little bit tricky because we've only had a certain amount of I think it was A through L in some schools for kindergarten, and then M through Z, it's separate day. And then today they all came. So accounting for who's actually there. A lot of families have chosen to drive their students the first couple of weeks, and then they'll be hopping on the bus. So we don't have a count or ability to be able to tell who is not actually supposed to be or not riding the bus that day necessarily, because they may be on the list, but they don't show up. So we have to, try to balance that out. So we work a lot with the teachers to report who's there and who's not.
I'm gonna go a different direction.
Okay,
You mentioned the bridge,
so,
okay? And I've seen on Facebook, many parents saying, why is it that the bridge doesn't know when high school is starting? And it invariably is up. So I'm wondering, like, every year we have our schedule. Is it possible for, I realize it's a totally, they're for commerce and they're for recreational boating. But at the beginning of the school year, would it be not a bad idea to remind them when high school gets in session? Given, the 10 to 12 minute window of a rush at that time. I mean, it's different for release because release just happens over time and kids are driving and parents are driving. But I think getting to school or those other key times when you might have buses heading over to West Parish, would making a little casual,
so I don't even know, I'm not even sure who they is in
I
terms of
believe
who.
it's a state, I don't even think.
No, I know it's not Gloucester, but
Oh,
I'm just saying, from a friendly perspective, maybe there might be some consideration if they just kind of.
I honestly don't know.
Right.
I
That
think
might
maybe
be,
someone-
that might be a mayor
think
question.
Someone who's been here
I
longer
did
than
ask the question once, and I was clearly told that Waterway has the right of way.
Right.
It's a federal channel for navigation.
Yeah, people have asked us.
That's why in the summer sometimes the bridge goes up, goes down for half a second, goes right back up, and you go, oh my goodness, we're back at the stage for it. Why did it go back up again? Because the
Right.
cars are secondary to.
Right,
I've been in the
exactly.
boat
Yeah,
many
and
times.
that's kind of what happened today. Is 2 buses made it, 1 bus didn't in a short amount of time. So
All right,
Wouldn't it be, in the same way that that boats can radio the bridge tender, wouldn't it be a bad idea to put that channel on the bus radio and say, hey, can you give me 2 more minutes? I'm coming down Western Ave.
okay, thank
All
you.
right.
Sure, all right, so a couple more updates here. So student vaccination rates as of today, so 60% at both O'Malley, that's 7th and 8th graders. Okay,
And Palm,
That's
okay, let me stop the share. Okay, train them, try it again. There we go. Thank you. So student vaccination rates as of today at O'Malley is 60% and GHS is 60% as well. That if you may remember, our 12, the data I showed 2 weeks ago are in Gloucester, 12 to 19-year-olds, about 69%. So obviously there's a discrepancy there. Obviously 19-year-olds, 18, 19 may not be in high school, but also, as we know, more than 200 students who live in Gloucester, not all 7 to 12, but so there also may be students who live in Gloucester but go to school elsewhere, private, parochial, or other districts that also make up some of that additional 10%. We had our vaccination clinics today for a first dose or of Pfizer or of a dose of Johnson & Johnson. Cost for students who are 12 to 18, they can only get the Pfizer one, but very small turnout for that. Just about 18, 19 folks at O'Malley and just over 20, about 2 dozen at the high school here. So we did a fair bit of outreach, emails, voicemails, also phone recordings, and also on our Facebook site, but still quite low turnout. We'll keep pushing and would like to have other folks help out as well. In terms of active cases, we have a total of 12 in the schools. All 4 of these have happened since we started school. 8 happened outside of school, and were kids who didn't come into school yet, and kids of our staff had it prior to school starting. They're existing cases, they're folks in our community, but 4 have happened since then. Communication, we're aiming to provide weekly updates on active cases and new cases, active cases and new cases, each school, for those school communities, rather than, a letter each time like we did last year. And also expect to put up a system-wide update, or perhaps dashboard that tracks active cases and cases in the district. So last year, as you remember, I gave this sort of update, and that was really the regular update. Hoping to have something that's a little more automated in addition to reporting it, that people can look at in addition to these updates as well.
Well, I just wanted to ask, because I saw today that the state is now going to be also reporting on cases in schools weekly.
Yeah.
Desi.
Mhm, yep.
So, it's great. I mean, it's great to have all this information. So should we as Gloucester families be focused on what you're sending us weekly? It looks like a weekly communication. Or should we be, sort of?
So the weekly communication takes the place of the sort of blow-by-blow letters that we did last year, okay? We have a webinar tomorrow that Jeff Parker will be on with Desi about how to report and what we're reporting to them. So I don't even know yet how we're doing that.
Okay.
But of course, family members can read our local, our emails from schools. They can chime into this. They can look at the dashboard when we get set up. So, or go to Desi. So,
And just.
those should all, they
Right.
all should be the same.
And the communications, this weekly communication, is this, if people are close contacts, I'm assuming they'll still get individual letters?
No, they don't get letters, they get communication from our school nurses
Okay.
or Board
But
of
they'll
Health.
get,
nurses.
there'll be
Oh, yeah.
communication for close contacts.
And one more update on that, which I didn't think to write down, but it's important news that the local Board of Health, Department of Health is hiring a contact tracer just for the schools. So part-time person, they're all part-time now. But who will help specifically with schools and be assigned, to any school-related cases. That's a big help. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks. I've had a couple parents already ask when the communication is gonna go out, just because people are hearing that there's positive cases and the rumor mill is already starting. So I don't know if it would be helpful just to give people a heads up that you're gonna be sending weekly updates rather than sort of a case by case basis.
Sure. Yeah.
Just so that people, overall anxiety can be decreased.
Yeah, it's one of the things where we don't have a track who's right on that, they're on, they're not laced up yet, but yes, absolutely, and then do that as soon as we can.
And to be honest, most people are like, I don't know if I want to get an update for every single person,
Yeah.
but I think it would just be helpful for them to know that.
Yeah, and that's sort of where we're aware of that,
Yeah.
that sense that, do we really, but still want to make sure people have some information. in their phone. So
Great.
trying to strike a balance with that, and I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's all I have for the update on school. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Bach, and we have some special guests here to give us an update, really sort of a summary report on tremendous summer programs that went on in a variety of schools.
Sorry about that. I hit the unmute button on the microphone. Newbie. Just thank you, Katie, Christy, and Amy, Jessica, for hanging in there. I made a mistake of saying 7:30. There's Christy. There's Katie. Jessica. Hi, Jessica. And there's Amy. Thank you. I made a mistake of saying 7:30 would be about right. So thanks for hanging in there. I'm going to talk very little because you're used to hearing from me, and this is a nice opportunity to hear directly from people who did the work this summer and work directly with the students. This is going to be heavy on elementary because this is the group that I have with us tonight. I'll just give a very quick update on middle and high. But I wanted to have this group come because Amy and Jessica were teachers in the classroom during the summer program at Beeman. You'll maybe recall that this is something we've not done before. We did an ELA and math program with ESSER funds, and that's something that we hope to do for years to come. It turned out to be a really great experience, but I'd like to have you hear directly from them. Christy Lambert, who is now the assistant principal over at the Rockport Elementary and was until very recently ELA coach at the Veterans School, was finished out her duties at the Beeman School as the director of the summer program. She did a fantastic job organizing everything and being there every day of the summer, and really did a great job. And Katie will also talk a little bit. She spent some time at the summer program. Greg Santos was the director, but she was there on site a number of days, so she's going to share a little bit about that. Ben, if you wouldn't mind, I shared with you the slides. If you could open those up, and then maybe Christy, if you could lead off and introduce a little bit about the program and overview, but also when we get to Amy and Jessica, I know you have some bullet points on the slide, but I think being able to hear about what was your day like, and how did the kids respond, and maybe a couple thoughts about what you might like to do in the future. So don't feel like you have to stick too much to those bullets if you feel like Christy covered it a little bit. And there we go.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight. Thanks for giving me the time to talk about this fantastic program we ran from right here, June 28th to July 29th. We held it at Beeman School. And thank you, Jess and Amy. It's nice to see you both. I don't get to see you as often anymore. So just to give you a brief overview, we ran a summer literacy and math camp, and alongside of our summer literacy and math camp, we had the Gordon Engineering and Coding Camp that was sponsored by GEF and primarily run, which you'll see in a moment, by Erin Schondemeyer and Anne-Marie Wenzel. We were at Beeman. We ran for 5 weeks, Monday through Thursday, 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Transportation was provided by Adam, who was one of my go-to people over the summer every single day. So thank you, Adam. And we also had breakfast and lunch provided by the Open Door. Next slide. So it was for our incoming first graders through our incoming fifth graders. We had 4 classrooms, and we combined some of our 4th and 5th grade students. So we had a first, a second, a third, and then a 4-5 combined. And you can see Ms. Coons here working on a word web, strengthening those reading brains. Next one. Like Greg mentioned, this was funded through the ESSER grant and also the Summer School Expansion and Engagement Grant. We had 96 students that were invited to attend, and 79 students attended, and we averaged around 90% weekly attendance. And I'll get more into that in just a little bit. Like I mentioned before, we had 4 classrooms, 16 staff members, myself. I had my own administrative assistant, Mimi Davis. Alicia Gossam was our nurse, 9 teachers, and 4 education support professionals. We were very lucky to have Beeman. We used both of our indoor and outdoor spaces. All the kids were masked while we were indoors. We followed all the COVID protocols, and everyone did fabulous with that. And we had this amazing partnership with the YMCA and Camp Spindrift. Greg and I met very early on. I think it was back in January or February when the planning started for this program, with myself and the other math and literacy coaches and the building principals, and of course, Mr. Bach. And in the past, we've partnered with the Y, and they've ran their own summer program. And we decided this year that we would take over the curriculum portion in the morning, since that's our expertise, and the Y would take over the fun camp experience portion. So every student had the opportunity of attending Camp Spindrift in the afternoon from around 12. They would leave my program and then go to Camp Spindrift over in West Gloucester till between 4 and 5. So they had that Monday through Thursday afternoons. It was optional. It was not mandatory for them to go. And they also got to go for a full day on Friday, which was really helpful to a lot of our families.
And Christy, can I mention that that was fully funded by a
Yes.
donor through the line? So our students did not pay for that afternoon.
Thank you, Greg. So in order to enter the summer or kind of qualify for the summer literacy and math program, the literacy and math coaches from across the elementary schools started meeting, and we meet regularly anyway, but we met extra times for determining what criteria we would use to figure out just who we would target for the summer program. So we used data from our DIBELS reading assessment, our STAR math and STAR reading comprehension assessment, as well as what we call ENI, and that is the early numeracy indicator assessment for our K and 1 students. And we also took input from classroom teachers and building principals. All students received targeted, differentiated, small group instruction in both math and literacy. We did rotations. They also had times for snack and recess. And we tried to make Thursdays, the last part of Thursdays, as fun as we could. You'll see we had a couple special guests visit us. And we're really happy to report that 70% of our students either maintained or advanced their math and literacy skills according to our pre and post assessment data.
If you recall, we talk a lot about summer learning loss, and that's certainly widely covered in the national press as well. It's really heartening to see that number of 70%. And it's quite a few students who attended to either maintained or moved forward rather than sliding it all during the summer.
And Jess and Amy, I think this is your slide. Jess, for those of you who don't know, Jessica is a 4th grade special educator at Veteran School. My daughter had her last year, and Amy Natola is housed at O'Malley School, but I believe she works at all of our schools as our audiology specialist. Are you there, guys?
Yes, thank you, Christy. Thank you everyone for having us. Jessica and I were really excited when we were asked to brainstorm some highlights and to be here tonight to present them. So some of them will piggyback off of what Christy said, and then we'll add in some of our own things as the teachers. So there were 3 teachers in our classroom. So myself, Jessica, and another teacher. And we did have 3 rotations. So we had 2 literacy groups and 1 math group. For the literacy groups, we actually had specific literacy programs. And one was the rewards program, and the other one was the vocabulary through morphemes. So some examples of what we worked on were suffixes, prefixes, compound words. There was also the math rotation, and during math, some examples of what they worked on was multiplication and division. The groups were smaller because they were the whole group was divided up into 3 smaller groups, which was great in terms of the ratio per students and the teacher. The program, as Christy mentioned, when Jessica and I were talking about preparing for tonight, we were talking about how the students who attended wouldn't qualify necessarily for other remedial services. So this was a great opportunity for them to come to, and we called it camp. So they thought it was camp and it was fun. So it was great that they had that opportunity to be there. And it was a time for them to practice and to maintain their literacy and math skills. We're so proud of their work. They worked each rotation. We made it, as fun as we could, but they, getting down to the nitty gritty, they worked and they worked hard, which was great. And as a teacher, I do travel throughout the district every day in my position during the school year as a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing. So I'm able to work with many different teachers across the district, many different students, but it was nice to see the 3 of us teachers come together and work in a different capacity that we that we wouldn't be able to have that opportunity during the school year. So that was great to be able to collaborate as the 3 teachers. And it was also great to see the students be able to come together from across the district and meet other students they may not have the opportunity to have met or to meet. So that was such a positive part of the program. We did, as Christy mentioned, we did a break time. So we had, during that break time, weather permitting, and we actually had really good weather during the summer, during the 5 weeks. We had mask break, and we had snack and recess. And that was the time to chat with the kids, and the kids could chat with each other, and they played on the playground. So that was just their time to have fun and enjoy the summer during their break time. So we did have that. So in our class, we did 2 rotations, the break time, and then we went back in for the last rotation. Our classroom, we're proud to say that it felt to the students, from what we could see, a safe and happy place for them to be learning for the summer. And again, to cross the schools and the grade levels, they could work with their peers. They really collaborated with each other. We had morning work time, which was just about 10 minutes or so as kids were trickling in from the bus or being dropped off. And they had just fun word searches, and they liked that. They liked that to start and to collaborate. And they really collaborated during the rotations as well, and they worked with each other. We are thankful to the parents and the guardians. Our attendance, and Jessica and I noted this in our class, was consistent. It was well attended. When students were absent and then they returned, the kids were so excited to hear what they did when they were absent. So we really were thankful to the parents and the guardians for supporting us and their child to coming to the program. We did, like Christy, I believe you mentioned, there was the free lunch and the camp spindrift. And the kids were excited about the Camp Spindrift if they were able to attend after the program.
Thanks, Amy.
Very welcome. And then Jessica has some feedback from a few of our students that were actually in our classroom.
Yeah, so just really quickly, hi. The summer program was so fun, and I don't think Christy mentioned it, but as I was kind of reflecting on this, we had some students who came from remote during the year, so it was a really nice introduction and kind of like an easy way for them to get back into the hang of like being at school and having a mask. And so, we had some parents come up to us, or some of the kids say like, I haven't been in school for a really long time, and but they really settled into the routines, and the other kids helped them a lot, which is great. And I had the opportunity to catch up with a couple students who attended the summer program and just kind of reflect back with them and see, what did they remember and how are they feeling? And several of the students said that they really enjoyed it overall, and they were really excited when I said like, oh, I'm going to talk to, Mr. Lemus and some of the school committee. We're going to see if we can do it again. And they were like, oh, that'd be so fun. Like, will you let us come back if we can do it? So kids really enjoyed being able to kind of have that safe space of the summer to like practice skills, play the games, and get the work done in like a really low risk, kind of environment where we really weren't asking astronomical, feats of them. Like, we were there to support them the whole time. They were always with us working, and the kids were really supportive of each other, as both Christy and Amy had mentioned. So they worked really hard. Several students recalled some of the books that we read and some activities that we did, and they were just really excited to kind of hear that like this could happen again. So I think that the kids enjoyed it just as much as we did. And so we're really hoping we can do this again, because I think all around, from all ends, it was fabulous. Christy did a great job running it. So hopefully we can keep this going.
And can I just jump in, Jess? I apologize. I had gone into a 5th grade classroom the other day, actually yesterday and last week. And as soon as I walked in, 2 of the students who are not students on my caseload, but 2 of the students from the summer, like during class, immediately raised their hand to wave, because they were just so excited. They're like, hi, Miss Natola, from the summer. And that was great to see. So it just shows that they really enjoyed the summer, and now that there's a connection, to another teacher in the district with them. So it was really nice to see them.
Christy, do you mind if I say a couple things quickly?
Please do.
I thank you, Jessica and Amy, for sharing your thoughts and time and your energy this summer. I just want to point out that when we were starting to plan for the summer, I called a number of districts to ask what they were doing and if they were applying for the summer school expansion grant and things like that. And the 3 districts I called said that they had great ideas, but they could not find any teachers who weren't exhausted from the year who wanted to work this summer. People really wanted to recharge, and I'm just so proud of the Gloucester staff who really stepped forward to have that many staff members go through a really, really hard year and start before June was even done and do 5 weeks of something new and challenging. It was really impressive. So I thank both of you, Jessica and Amy, for stepping up. You really led the way and hopefully created something that we can continue next year. Very proud of everybody for stepping up this summer and making a good experience. So, thank you. And we just have Jess and Amy. I'm gonna talk very briefly about the engineering and coding camp and a couple other things. You're welcome to stay, but if you'd like to get to the rest of your evening and families, please feel free to sign off if you'd like.
Is Christy signing off too?
Christy's going to stay for just a little bit.
Okay.
And I added some pictures from engineering camp, and Christy was there as well. So she's going to share it quickly because it's important to know that while we were also adding a large number of students in a new program, we substantially increased the size of the Gordon Engineering and Coding Camp. There were a lot of students involved in that. So we really tripled their capacity, I think, this summer. Christy, do you want to talk a little bit about this next couple of slides?
Sure. So while reading and math camp were going on in one hallway at Beaman, Erin and Anne Marie and their staff were leading our Gordon Engineering and Coding Camp for our district 4th and 5th graders. And it's goes without saying that they've have run this program successfully for a number of years now. And because it is so popular, we had opened up an additional classroom this year because the kids just have so much fun learning about coding and how to engineer different projects, which you can see 2 of our students here. And I really had nothing to do with the planning of this program, but all the credit should go to Erin Schondelmeyer and Anne-Marie Wenzel because they just do a rock star job every single year of running this for our oldest elementary students. If you go to the next slide, I can show you some more pictures. So this year we had 90 participants, and like I just said, we added a 4th classroom. And it could not have happened without the Gloucester Education Foundation, more specifically the Bernard Gordon Foundation. I've mentioned Anne-Marie and Erin already, but Caitlin Driscoll also took time out of her summer to lead a classroom, as well as Jill Amiro, all Gloucester teaching staff. And we also had 3 high school students join us this summer as teaching assistants, Zoe Hedges, Neville Clancy, and Eliana Faria. And they were great role models for our younger students to look up to. And they were very hands-on with the projects that the students were doing and really, really helpful to the classroom teachers. So we thank them for joining us. And this particular camp utilized the Museum of Science Engineering as elementary curriculum. And the students also learned coding through a computer program called Code Monkey. The next
I think
slide.
we have a couple, okay, another one, yep.
So we did 5 weeks, just like we had at Math and Literacy Camp. And with those 5 weeks came 5 units. And my daughter was lucky enough to attend the last 2 weeks, and she just had a blast. We have some kids here participating in some sort of presentation outside. You can see that they all got a t-shirt. So those were very popular to wear when you were attending engineering camp. So they did a unit called Go Green, in which they engineered recycled racers. They did Bubble Bonanza. They engineered bubble wands and just massive bubbles outside. Thankfully, that wasn't the week that we had torrential downpours. Amy is remembering all the good weather we had, but there was also a few 100-degree days, as well as, you know, some near hurricanes, I would say. They did a week called To the Rescue, which was the engineered aid drop packages, which was so incredible to see them work on. And then they did Shake Things Up, which was engineering earthquake resistant buildings. And they related that to the earthquake experience that had happened in Haiti. So this was all bringing in real life experience for our oldest elementary students as well. And they also had done Hop to It, which was the safe removal of invasive species. And on Thursdays, they would either come together in the Beeman Auditorium. We had a few guests a couple of weeks from the Gloucester Education Foundation, and they would test their final products to see if they engineered them correctly, or if they would, you know, what they would do to go back and fix it to make their product work more effectively. And so it also required them to be kind of reflective in their engineering practices. And when my daughter was done with this program, she said, "Mom, I think I'm going to be a software engineer when I grow up," which is nothing I had ever aspired to be when I was going into 5th grade. So that was like music to my ears at the end of her 2-week experience with Erin and Anne-Marie and the rest of the staff. We have some pictures here with some earthquake resistant buildings. You can see they used a variety of recycled materials. Over here on the left, we have a team working together for the recycled racers, which they could see how far their race car that they built went. Their creativity and their imaginations were just incredible. And this was a true team effort. And I have to thank so many people, because this whole summer would not be possible without everybody's participation and help. So first, to our campers, our engineers, and their families, the pickup, the drop-off procedures, my emails, people were just so grateful to have their kids be a part of this, and we were so lucky to have them. Our literacy and math camp faculty and staff, like Greg said, they took time out of their summer, and really we did not have a problem staffing this like other districts did. So Mimi Davis, who is my right hand, Alicia Gossam, our nurse, Jane Brinkleone, Ruth Ribeiro, Alexis LaFlamme, and April Haudela made up our first grade team. Amy Clayton, Peggy Brown, and Lisa Lowe is our 2nd grade team. Michaela Cato, Sarah Wakis, and Eleanor Goldman made up our 3rd grade team, and you just met Amy and Jessica Coons, as well as Haley Shergan, made up our 4th and 5th grade classroom. The entire engineering and coding camp faculty and staff, that program could not have run without them. The Gloucester Education Foundation and the Bernard Gordon Foundation. And the people that I miss so much already are literacy and math coaches who really helped me with the planning and implementation of this program in my endless amount of text messages and emails. Alex Osborne from Clump Cove, Adrian Rickeyman from West Parish, Melissa Francis from East Gloucester, Melanie Stansfield from Beeman, Kristen Parsons, who is now at East Gloucester in Veterans as the math coach, and Janet Donovan, who has since retired. We certainly couldn't do it without those guys. And I am forever appreciative. Just have a few more. Debbie Quinn, who is our substitute extraordinaire. She covered for when some teachers had to be out. Adam Mayo and my endless phone calls, thank you. The YMCA and the Camp Spindler staff. The Open Door for providing such fabulous meals. Jody Genotti, who opened up her building, and the entire Beaman School faculty for letting us use their classrooms. Officer Sutera and Ace, who were our special guests, Mr. Lummis and Mr. Bach, who I called on frequently. And also I have to say thank you to Superintendent Lebo of the Rockport Public Schools and Todd Zimendinger, who is the principal at Rockport Elementary School, for agreeing that I needed to see this commitment through. And I am so happy that I did. So thank you all.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Christy. When I first saw the thank yous, I thought maybe we can slim down a couple pages worth, but then I just realized, it takes a village to raise a child and a city to put together a really good summer program. There were a lot of people and agencies behind this and a lot of staff. So I'm really glad that you highlighted those, because it's just a good reminder of how much has to come together to do this. Kathy, I think
I just wanted to commend everyone for this. Christy, particularly you running this. It's really just extraordinary how you can make learning fun, which is what the goal is all the time, but here it is summer. I think probably some of the success, it seems like the 5-week schedule worked probably better for hopefully getting the teachers motivated to take on a responsibility, but without losing their entire summer. Same with the kids, right? They get a little break after school finished, and then they began again, and it was fun for them, and then they had the whole month of August. So I think the structure of it was a phenomenal way to do it, to get all that participation. I had heard that even that the engineering camp had a wait list for some of their sessions. So my understanding was that they could sign up for 1 week or all 5. So it's terrific to see that has grown as well. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
So I want to start by saying, I'm very appreciative of this program, very impressed by, everything we were presented tonight. I do want to just dig in critically on one thing that was presented. The first question, it's 2 parts. The first question is, we're told that 70% of students in the math and literacy camp either maintained or advanced. I'm curious, of that 70, so 7 out of 10 students, was it 6 maintaining and 1 advancing? How do you come up with 70, right? Where's the skew between advancing and maintaining in that 70? I don't know if you have any data here, but I'd love to know that, because obviously, that the composition of those 2 groups makes a big difference of what that 70 is. And my other question is, a 5-week program, and still 3 out of every 10 students suffered learning loss, despite that program. And I'm curious if there's any kind of like after action, like, okay, these students were given this awesome opportunity, resources, small groups, like all the things that like check, to like really help a student out, and still 3, made backward progress despite everyone's efforts, despite all this stuff being, put toward it. And so I'm curious if there's been any kind of like, examination as to how did 3 out of every 10 kids go the wrong way despite everything that was coming at them. Again, this is not to diminish the accomplishments of what we saw tonight, but it just, it kind of struck me like, all the cool stuff they were doing, all the resources they had, all the dedication they were showing, and still, these 3 out of 10 kids were somehow backsliding.
So I can take that on. I'm happy to dig deeper into the data for you, Joel, and figure out exactly who maintained and who advanced. Tonight was just primarily to present an overview for you guys about who either maintained or advanced. I'd have to dig a little deeper into the data to see that exact breakdown. But in terms of the students, I wouldn't necessarily say they backslid. I would take in, there was a lot of factors to take into account, attendance, whether it was regular or irregular for a particular student. If I personally felt that a student did, after reviewing everything at the end of the 5 weeks, we're really lucky in this district to have our math and literacy coaches that know our students so incredibly well. Those students, they were targeted in the beginning to enter our program, but that just requires us to question and go back. What type of instruction is going to benefit that particular student the most? Does the team have to go back and reevaluate exactly the type of strategies or interventions that they need to know in order to make effective progress? Was it an intensity question? Did they need to attend more frequently? Was the 3 hours a day not enough? So I have sent the names that I am concerned about, or the group that I'm concerned about, over to our district building administrators and our literacy and math coaches, so they can just keep an eye on them and make sure that they continue to make progress throughout the rest of the school year and throughout their years in Gloucester Public Schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And,
We have,
middle and high,
so
good.
There's more.
Katie,
There's more.
Katie, Amy, and Jessica, we're set with the Beaman portion. Sorry, I didn't mean Katie, I meant Amy, Christie. Katie's gonna stay on and share a little bit about the
Can I just say one
program.
thing
Yeah.
before Katie goes? So, thank you, Amy and Jess, really appreciate all your work and also the work you're symbolizing, you know, you're representing for so many other people. And Christy, thank you very, very much. And we still miss you very much, just in case you're wondering. Okay.
Thank you.
But great, good luck to you. I'm still not that upset with Superintendent Lebo. I'm a little upset, but no, it's all in jest. Really wish you luck in your new position, and we will always
Thank
miss
you.
you. Of
Thanks,
course.
guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
So.
Here's Katie.
Hey, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I promise I'll be quick. Starting this job on July 1st and being able to just step right into an extremely well-run special ed summer program was a really nice way to enter the district for me, and to be able to get to meet so many of our high-level needs students. We were able to serve pre-K to age 22 students that were in many of our district-wide programs that have high levels of need. They were able to receive specialized programmatic instruction 4 days a week for the 5 weeks from 8:15 to 12:15. And West Parish School was able to host us. Lois was fabulous, and Talina was very welcoming as well, as she always is. Our anticipated enrollment was around 77 students for the district programs. And our actual enrollment was 72 to 75, which is a great turnout for that. We had it staffed with 8 special education teachers, 16 paraprofessionals, a nurse, the secretary, and the program director. There was also tutoring that occurred, summer tutoring for reading, writing, and math for approximately 90 to 100 students. And those were more scheduled by appointments throughout the day based on the IEPs and what those students had allotted for extended school year to prevent that significant regression. Can go to the next slide. And then just a few highlights. Greg Santos was the summer program director, and he did a phenomenal job running the summer program. This was his first year doing that, and I just wanted to thank him tremendously because it was really made my job easier entering and having him have everything so organized and run so smoothly. A couple of thank yous again. Open Door provided those bagged lunches and the bagged breakfasts for students all summer. And then we also had a pizza day, which was hosted by Firing Up. So thank you to them as well. Our life skills students were able to actually travel off campus and go to Market Basket and the dollar store and engage in other community skill building and daily living skills. We had social groups running, which were able to include some peer models. And of those peer models, some of the students were new to Gloucester schools, and it really helped with that integration and prep for them coming into a new school. Several of our summer teachers that were new to the district were actually hired for the school year because they were so fabulous. And Adam Mayo, I cannot say enough about Adam Mayo because transportation ran so smoothly, and he just did a really nice job with that as well. So that's my quick highlight for the program. And it was really nice to meet the kids and the staff and be able to participate in that with them.
Questions about the special education program?
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Two quick ones. The O'Malley Middle School programs continued this summer. Drama program did Little Mermaid. There was a drama boot camp. You saw, I think Ben shared at the last meeting, the mural at O'Malley. Amy Natola seems to be everywhere, and everywhere this past summer. She was part of that as well. The summer boost, which was the equivalent ELA and math, this is where we did have some challenges with attendance. And encouraging middle school students to come for more heavy duty ELA and math is a taller order, and also maintaining their attendance was a challenge. The one thing I want to note here is that the Step It Up program, though, was a big surprise. To me, I guess, maybe not to the staff there who planned it. But grade 5 to 6 transition camp was for a week in August 16th, and 40 to 45 students attended, and there was a wait list that they were not able to fill. And they are hoping to double the capacity next year to 50 to 100 students. And it just lets you know that there's a real demand and a place for that transition and preparing for the year in middle school. And so that's something I think we can really capitalize on and work toward. And I don't have a lot of details for you about it because I wasn't able to spend time there. We were really engaged with the new programs at the elementary, so I can possibly pass on a question if you have one.
Just a basic question, which is sort of was the target sort of for anyone who wanted assistance in the transition from 5 to 6, or what was the target? What was the target grade for that?
My understanding is that the outreach was for anyone who felt that they wanted to have that kind of transition, and I think the response was maybe a little surprising and something to build on for next year.
Great.
Yeah.
You probably don't know the answer, but I'm just curious what kind of activities that would be.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe when we have Principal Beatty on the next time, maybe she can talk a little bit about that.
I think that's a terrific way for kids to get into know.
Yeah, I do too. I'm thinking about the successes at elementary and the success in that age group particularly. It might be a really nice way to build in some getting used to the idea. We're looking forward to the idea of being at school in the summer. So maybe that's something that you change the culture around. And then a quick one, high school. So just to share, I shared in the spring that we would be doing summer credit recovery at the high school. Sean Goulart and Allie Smith ran the program, directed the program in the summer. We had tier 1 credit recovery for kids grade 50 or higher in a core subject. They used the Edmonton Plato credit recovery, but they did it with direct teacher support. So they weren't just on their own doing this. They had close support and contact and in-person work with teachers as they moved through that. We had expected 50 to 60 students and had 40 to 50 students who enrolled this summer. And the second to last one, tier 2. This was for students who had a grade of lower than 50. They could take an entire semester or 2 semesters. This is much more intensive and required really close support from teachers, and can take up to 30 days. They did self-paced work at home, but also were there July and August, 7:30 to 12:30 with teacher in-person support for staff members there. And then I believe that is the last one on that. I don't have data on that one, and that's possibly something that if you have further questions, I can bring them to Mr. Cook.
Is the rigor involved with tier 1 equivalent to that in the course that the students did not pass initially?
I don't think there's any replacement for, other than, teaching the entire course. I don't think, I can't say that a summer credit recovery is ever going to be equal to a full semester course. However, the Plato credit recovery is something that is nationally used. It's considered equivalence, and they had the support of high school staff members who were able to provide that support and also the push.
If you heard high school students remarking that it's easier to just do credit recovery over the summer than try and get a passing grade because class X is difficult, but the credit recovery is easy, would you think they're off base? Do you think there's a chance that they're observing an actual experience that
I think if a student says that, then there's got to be some element to it, and it may be that I don't know. It's surprising to me that
I'm surprised to hear it.
I'm surprised that a student would, first of all, would want to spend the time during the summer. That's not an easy sell usually.
Sure.
So that's a little bit of a surprise. I do know from direct experience, having done it before as a teacher, this is a while back, but having done it, is that sometimes students felt that they needed, for social reasons, felt they needed to explain why they were in the summer, and that might be an explanation for some of that. It's possible. I experienced it myself. But I certainly also don't disagree that there is no, there's no equal replacement unless you reteach the entire course at the same pace. I hope that that's not a widespread kind of feeling. And
Yeah, no, just curious to hear how you react to your bill.
yeah, I also feel like we have Sean Goulart and Allie, they are teachers who have long experience working with students, know them really, really well. And that's a question that I would love to ask them, because students don't hold back from sharing their thoughts.
Right, imagine a summer with Allie and Sean is actually probably a pretty enjoyable.
Yeah,
It's a pretty enjoyable ride.
But they're also, if two people would know, like, if that's a widespread sentiment, they are people I can very easily ask. But also just want to thank them and the entire staff in the summer for their dedication. So really, especially important this summer.
Thank you, Greg. And sounds like a successful summer.
Busy summer.
I'm all set.
You're all set?
There's our updates. Oh, no, sorry, strategic planning, sorry. So I'll give you a quick rundown on entry plan report and strategic planning. So, I'll be providing you my entry plan findings next meeting. And at that point, lay out our strategic planning process as well. We'll be engaging in sorry, I always have trouble with the word strategic, which is I'll stumble over a lot in the next 4 or 5 months, okay? We'll have a strategic planning process underway this fall after I submit my entry plan findings report. That will be a process that will include the school committee through subcommittees, as well as the full committee. It'll include engaging staff members around the district, each of the schools. I also want to re-engage our community partners group that met last year, our parent leaders group, and then also may have I'm hoping to perhaps get a sort of a standing team of staff around the district who can go through different iterations and provide feedback, in addition to getting sort of broad-based input from staff as well. So it'll be an inclusive process, but also one that is time limited, doesn't go on forever. Hoping to we'll have it finished around the to inform the budget. We may not have the plan fully adopted by all of you by then, but it'll be very clear where we're going, and as we build the budget, it'll tie in, be driven by where we are and where we're headed on the strategic plan. So that's a quick update.
Okay, then we'll move on to our, there are no committee reports. We'll move on to action items. We have a number of grants to accept, and the first group is from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And the first one is FY22 American Rescue Plan Early Childhood Grant in the amount of $15,144. And I so move.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Anyway, to amend it to pick them all up, they have to be voted separately.
Might be easier just to do them separately.
Fine, no
Have me
discussion.
try to add these all up.
Fair enough.
Which I sometimes do, but I didn't do it in advance.
I'm gonna see how far I've backslid since my summer learning loss.
Ray, can we have a roll call vote?
Kathy Clancy.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Cavazza. Chairman Poe.
Yes.
Ms. Watson. Yes. And Ms.
Yes.
Wilson.
Carries unanimously. The next one is the FY22 American Rescue Plan Grant in the amount of $170,291. And I so move.
Second.
Discussion,
Can I just give you the specifics? That's a special education grant.
that's the special.
Yeah, so the state, in addition to ESSER money, the state has federal funds to make a American Rescue Plan. This is a specific one for special education services.
I suppose that's the question that the mayor would likely ask for all of these. There's no matching requirement for any of these grants, correct?
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Ready for a roll call vote?
Kathy Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Cavazza.
Yes.
Chairman Poe.
Yes.
Ms. Watson. Yes. Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. The next one is an FY22 Special Education Grant 240 grant in the amount of $934,166. And I so move. Discussion. Roll call vote.
Kathy Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Cavazza.
Yes.
Chairman Poe.
Yes.
Ms. Watson. Yes. Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. The next one is the FY22 Early Childhood Grant 262 grant in the amount of $25,836. And I so move.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call vote.
Kathy Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Cavazza.
Yes.
Chairman Poe.
Yes.
Ms. Watson. Yes. Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Now we have two grants from the Gloucester Education Foundation. And the first one is Gloucester High School Auto Shop Solar Panel. The solar panels in the amount of $22,000. I so move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Can you just get a little detail as to where they're going and how much they expect to offset? Do you have any of that?
I don't know how much to offset. This has been in the works for a number of years. I checked in with Mike Hale last year because I was thinking of a roof, and that sounded like a problem. They're actually being attached to the exterior wall. So we're not penetrating the roof in any way, which could cause problems, obviously.
Yeah.
So, but this was signed off very fully by DPW more than a year ago. I just don't know the details about what we're pulling. We can follow up on that and get back to you.
Yeah, I'm not, there's a little bit, it's great. I'm just curious. I mean, that's the point and say, like, this covers the following machines, or this can run the X lifts, like, just kind of, put a.
It's trains them to install the panels and take them off, install and take them off. So it's adding that particular skill to the electrical program.
It's awesome. It's for the auto shop, right?
No, electrical, right?
It says
No,
auto
just
shop.
auto
It says
shop.
auto shop.
I think they're attached. That's where they're attached.
The auto shop, I think.
But the electric students are gonna actually have to do the work or contribute.
Yeah, I believe so.
That's great.
Okay. Any further discussion? Ready to go roll call?
Kathy Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Cavazza.
Yes.
Chairman Poe.
Yes.
Ms. Watson. Yes. Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. The next one is Gloucester High School Summer Advanced Placement Prep Classes in the amount of $4,120.65. Nice, so moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Good going, Mr. Petro.
Roll call vote.
Kathy Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Cavazza.
Yes.
Chairman Poe.
Yes.
Ms. Watson. Yes. Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. So the next item is an update on the East Gloucester Veterans Memorial School Building Committee update. We're meeting tomorrow. It will be the main event of the meeting is to approve or allow the OPM to submit the 90% design development submission to MSBA. Once again, we had to go through the process of getting estimates and checking in with our original budget. The estimates came in a little bit over the existing budget, the budget that we try to match. But, and they'll explain how they figure the design team, the OPM, and the contractor will plan on tell us how they're going to get back on budget tomorrow. But they did say that they're in preparation. They did say that we're not going to have to make any cuts that it will affect in education. So maybe we get.
If you remember, in the 60%, there was discrepancy between the two estimates. They had to work to narrow that. And then we had to value engineer, obviously, to have the budget. But at this point, there was very little discrepancy between the two estimates.
And when we did narrow it at the last time, we did put a little bit of buffer in that, so that I think is going to get used in this iteration.
There is not a lot of fluff in this, and still challenging times, but I do expect things to get clearer and clearer as we move through the various bidding processes.
But some of the early packages have been signed off. Contracts have been signed for the steel, for all the steel for the building, and it's moving forward. And we're in the process of planning a groundbreaking ceremony during the week of October 18th.
Looking at the 19th to the 21st.
Yeah, and what we did at West Parish, which I thought was quite nice, was we brought in a busload of third graders from the schools, just one school. We would bring them, so they would be the fifth graders when the school opens. So.
Last I drove by, everything but the auditorium had come down. Is that down yet right now?
Sorry, say that again?
Last time I drove by the school, everything but the auditorium had come down.
What do you mean the auditorium?
The gymnasium, cafeteria, auditorium. The big room. We do everything. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I literally do not know.
The room with the stage and the food and the basketball court.
I haven't been by this week.
Yeah, I haven't. Contrary to schools that are
Fully standing.
yeah, fully standing, exactly. Sorry.
With kids in them.
Mostly standing.
All right, are there any questions on that? Okay, consideration of support on House Bill number 969 and what?
926.
Mine says 926. Yeah.
Really, mine says 969.
That was a revision today.
Oh, okay. And I got the old edition. So 926, and we've distributed some information about this. It is about pesticides in schools. It is about limiting, and I think there's actually lists of some that would be not allowed, and some that would be allowed. There is going to be a public hearing. I'm trying to remember. It's going to be either the end of this month or early next month. What a local group has asked us to do is to write a letter of support. We can move forward on this. I've been hoping to get some information from Mike Hale. You have some?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So reaching out to Mike, he said that no herbicides or pesticides are used on our grounds. The state's IPM program, which is integrated pest management program, is what we follow in terms of any products used indoors. And the state has approved products that schools are allowed to use through the IPM process, and all the products we use are in compliance with that. And they're all publicly, the whole state's IPM process is on the state website, but that's what governs our use, and that's what we comply with, is what's approved at this point by the state. I don't know if this bill would adjust that or supersede that, but at this point, we're in compliance with everything the state allows us to use.
Well, go ahead.
Well, this is just a question. Sorry, Marcia Hart has her hand up, and
Okay.
Patty Page. I think they were the ones who were.
They are the people that have asked us to consider it, and they may have some information.
Right.
Without objection, I'd be happy to let them speak.
All right, we'll start with Marcia.
So Marcia?
Hi, thanks for having us talk. There is a current pest management plan that the state has, and that was instituted in 2001. And this is a bill that was introduced in the legislature by Carmen Gentile, who's in the 13th Middlesex District, to alter that list with the scientific information that has been accumulated since then. So certainly the city's in compliance, but they're in compliance with the current law, and there are groups that are trying to change that to reflect losing some of the chemicals from the arsenal, like glyphosate, which is Roundup, which is in such great question today. There's another one, 2,4-D. So it creates a new list that is on the current EPA list of less toxic materials, or ones that are approved for organic use. So I'm just following this because I'm involved in environmental issues, and I follow a group called Mothers Out Front, and they've made this particular bill one of their priority bills for the state. And so I became interested in it and thought that the school committee should be aware that this is going on. A bill gets introduced, and then it has a hearing date, and the hearing date hasn't been set with the state. So it goes before a state committee called the Environment, Natural Resources, and Agriculture, and they discuss the bill that day. It's heard with many other bills, but that is one that will be talked about whatever day the date is that's set. And I was hoping that maybe there were committee members that were interested enough in this particular issue for our children. And it's only outdoor use. It's not this bill only addresses outdoor use on schools, childcare centers, and it sounds like after-school programs for school children. But it doesn't address indoor chemicals. So maybe another day that will happen. But the hearings are really interesting. You hear what other environmental groups and other municipalities, what their thinking is on this. So I'm going to try and listen to that so I know more. And I would encourage that somebody on the committee does too. Patty and I have also spoken to the Board of Health, and they're going to put this on their agenda for their next meeting, which won't be until the beginning of October. But you could also, try and collaborate with them on their opinions on this. I just wanted the city to be aware of this going on, and you can write to the committee. You can write to our legislators. You can participate in the committee hearing. You can join with the Board of Health. You can, make up your own, I imagine, list of appropriate chemicals for our schools if the bill doesn't pass that reflects more current science. And I'm sure the Board of Health members could be helpful with that if you chose to. So we just are bringing it really to your attention and trying to provide you with any information that you'd find helpful, so that you can become more informed about what our kids may be being exposed to. And it seems to me like our history with chemicals is that we use them and then find out perhaps we shouldn't have been. And I would like that prevented with our children as much as possible. My kids are long grown up, and my granddaughter's at the end of Gloucester High School. But I'm still concerned, having worked as a nurse in the community, for all the kids in town. And I know you all are too, and you certainly have very long meetings. So God bless you all.
Thank you, Marcia. Patty, would you like to add anything to that?
Hi, Patty Page, 3 Tidal Cove Way. Thank you for taking us in tonight. I did hear Ben Loomis say that, you know, what the practices the school is doing is within state compliance. And I think that's a basically correct statement. However, our plans that are filed with the state at the MDAR, the last time they were filed was in 2019. So they aren't current. The IPM coordinator is Joe Lucido, so I think he's with the DPW. Because the plans with the school aren't current, I wonder if we still have a current contract with a pest management control, because recently, within the last 6 months, there's been evidence of herbicides sprayed in one school and rodenticide boxes at another. So I think we need to tie up where this is exactly. If we need current IPM plans, that should be looked at and filed. If we have the contract, you know, we need to look at that, what practices are being used, when and where. And part of this is, if I have this correct, that the public is supposed to be notified before these treatments are provided. So I don't think that that piece is actually in play at all. So I think it needs to be looked at with, you know, some realistic view here. Now that the mayor has authorized Marcia and Lisa Rigsby and I to form an ad hoc committee for community pesticide reduction. I'm hoping that the committee can work through some of these issues. And at a prior school committee, I suggested that possibly the new student council from the high school could weigh in on this. These kids are in these spaces, inside and outside. If they have an interest, they should know what's being used. I'd like to utilize the high school student council with maybe the Board of Health to decide, should we update these plans? Should we?
Yeah.
When
she's done and.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
All right. Well, there are some pieces to that, and I'm sorry to be a little bit off topic, but the legislation support does reduce the chemicals that they can use. So it's a big push around the state to try to get school committees and Board of Health and different boards and commissions to support this. It is for the safety of the children, and it's supported by Mothers Out Front and the Northeast Organic Farmers Association. So we do hope that you will consider that. And thank you. I'm sorry I got off on the 2 pieces, but I think it's important to really pull this together. I don't know that we are fully compliant with what we need to be right now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify. So, because what Mike Hale, who's director of DPW, and it oversees, as you all know, but just for the public here, oversees, you know, our grounds. And of course, Joe Lucia, who works, you know, for DPW as well. Mike Hale said that no herbicides or pesticides are used on our grounds. Okay.
Period.
Okay. Statement tonight that a claim that goes against that, and so we should clear that up.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't, I operate on what the person in charge of these things tells me, okay, and those claims are unverified, okay? It doesn't mean you should look into them, okay, but I don't want to assume that, you know, what's said publicly here is the way we're operating, because we don't have any evidence of it at this point, okay? So I'll look into that further, okay? We'll gain clarification. But what he's saying very clearly to me is that no herbicides or pesticides are used on our grounds.
So
But
that's-
rotofoxes probably are.
Right, but I don't,
That's different than the herbicide.
right, that's different, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's completely
that's
different.
different, exactly, that is different, so, anyway, so we'll, you know, ask again, but, you know, I just want to be clear about that.
Laura?
So I just want to be clear on what we're discussing here. There's two issues. Ben has just addressed the first, which is what are our school pesticide plans, protocols, et cetera, and that can be resolved. So the question is, what action do we want to take if we do in support of this bill? I thought that was our question.
That's what's before us.
Okay. So I know that Marcia and Paige have supplied a lot of information. There's a lot of information. Do we, as a school committee, want to write a letter in support? Do we want to wait till the Board of Health weighs in? I'm happy to draft something, but I just want to see how we move this forward if that's our choice.
Well, it sounds like whether this bill passes or not, it has no impact on our school grounds, and that we are beyond this bill, and that we are using 0 pesticides and herbicides, period. It's whether we reduce the number of allowable pesticides or herbicides, you know, still may do what many would consider a benefit statewide. But as far as our purview, which is to, you know, the school district and our City of Gloucester school properties, it sounds like this bill would have no bearing on the way in which we maintain them, in that we are already in, you know, exceeding the limitations they're looking to place, and that we just don't use them at all.
But can I respond to that?
Sure.
So, but I don't know. I'm fully, I have complete faith in DPW, but I don't know if that's a policy or if that's a law,
Or if that's just a personal
or
choice.
that's a
of DPW.
personal decision made at a particular moment.
And a new director might say, why would we spend so much money on string trimmers? Let's just go spray.
Exactly.
Right,
around.
so I want to know where that's codified, to say that that's not relevant for Gloucester.
It sounds to me like they haven't even set a date for the hearing yet. We have time. We have a meeting in 2 weeks. So it sounds to me like we can gather more information. We can find out from the Board of Health whether they're taking a position on this. We can find out, like Kayla said, they don't use any herbicides or pesticides, but for rodent control, they do use whatever's on the state list. And what we've heard tonight was what this bill is about, is changing what's on the state list.
Right.
So there's more information I think that we could do. So without objection, I'm going to table this till our next meeting, and we'll try to have all the information we can have available.
I'll follow Mike up, tomorrow as well, see if any other further questions.
Just to make the observation that in recent weeks, we've been told sometimes aggressively that we are not qualified to make medical decisions. And I'm surprised that I didn't hear that same sentiment tonight, knowing that this is on the agenda. Very surprising to me. I thought the same people would have been upset.
Well, it may be if we make a decision, Joe, we may hear from him yet. Okay. Is there anything else anybody would like to bring up before we adjourn? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Okay.
Second. Roll call vote, Maria.
Nancy,
Yes?
Mr. Plaza,
Yes.
Mayor Pope,
Yes,
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Weeson.
Yes.
this meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all soon.